Greetings to you, good people of the vinyl community. Welcome to Wax and Relax, the vinyl listening room. My name's John, and this is my channel. We developed this out of a Facebook group that I started a couple of years ago, with the intention of getting people to, post photo of records that they love and have a little bit of lively discussion about records that they're listening to, or part of their collection or what have you. Then I started doing some research on YouTube and found all these different videos about people doing vinyl tags and top 10 lists and so on and so forth. And I see that there's a lot of really close knit camaraderie between a lot of the different channels in the community. So I thought I'd pitch in and see if I can get started and meet a couple of fine folks and show you what I'm into, show you what I got. Just a little quick thing about me. Coming to you from Tampa Bay, Florida. I'm overweight, 55-year-old dad with 3 kids and 2 jobs and a rock band. Been collecting vinyl since I was a kid and got rid of most of my collection over the years from moving from place to place across the country. And then when my son, about 10, 11 years old, started to get an interest in vinyl, we started collecting again. Actually, what had happened is we were playing. I was playing music with this gentleman, and we went over to his house to have a little jam session with his daughter, who was just learning how to play. And while we were there, sat and had a beer, and he pulled out a Doc Watson record and put it on a turntable and had 2 powered bookshelf speakers. And I sat there for 45 minutes drinking beer and listening to a record, and it just brought me back to when I was a kid, drinking beer and listening to records. But that purposeful listening of doing nothing but enjoying that record and the liner notes and the snap, crackle, and pop of a well-loved record. And so I decided to get back into it and brought my son into it with me. You'll meet him eventually. He'll be on a couple of the shows. But that's how we got back into it. We started going to the dollar bins and kind of building our collection. So a bunch of our collection is dollar bin finds. Covers are kind of trashed. The records are good and the music's always wonderful, or usually wonderful. But having said that, I'm the type of shopper that will take 2 unpriced copies up to the front desk and ask them which one's the cheaper one, and often that's what I go with. It's only been several years ago that we started buying new stuff, reissues and new releases and things like that. But for a while it was strictly just super budget stuff. But then you get that hook, you get right back on it just like you did when you were kids, and it's all consuming. And here we are talking into our phone to strangers on the internet. But I wanted to start with my introductory video. I see a lot of folks out there doing the 10 records I listen to the most. And that could change on a daily basis. So I just pulled kind of a cross section of what I would normally, pour myself a drink, come into the studio here and pull 10 records that I'd want to listen to right off the bat, and tell you a little bit of story about how some of them fit into my life. First one I'm going to talk about is when we started collecting again. This was actually the first record that I bought as a new record, and I actually got it at Barnes & Noble. I'm a huge Bowie fan, and this is, as most people agree, the masterpiece, Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. It's pretty cool, these Bowie reissues. They make the label look like the old RCA label, but instead of RCA it says Bowie in the same font. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I go to this one quite a bit. Bowie's very important to me, especially those 70s Bowie's records. Next, going back to the early 70s, I believe 71. Preface these next 2 by telling you a little quick story. I'm the youngest of 8 kids, and so a lot of my 70s listening has a lot to do with being the youngest in a house full of teenagers. And my brother one of my middle brothers, we used to ski when we lived up in New York, and he would get Wednesdays off from work, so my mom would let me skip school on Wednesdays to go and ski with him because no one else could go with him. Um, so during the winter, I'd miss almost every Wednesday for us to drive, I don't know, an hour or so away from home to go skiing at Hunter Mountain. And every week on the way there, it was tradition. On the way there, we listened to Neil Young after the Gold Rush. And that memory is indelibly stamped in my life. And when I started collecting again, this was the first record on my list that I had to cross off before anything else. And then, on the way home from that ski trip, we listened to Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy, um, every week that we went. And this is my favorite Zeppelin record. Later on in life, as I became a musician, I realized that it is so well rounded. Everything that you love about Zeppelin is on this record, and more so. You know, the funkiest stuff they've done, the most psych stuff that they've done. There's the blues, there's the acoustic stuff. You know, there's the mellow, there's the frenetic. It's all there, and that squeaky bass drum pedal. Great record, House of the Holy. Back in the early '90s, I worked at Bananas Records in St. Pete, Florida. I was a new product buyer, and at the time we were known as the largest used record store in the Southeast. And working there, I worked with all these great people that knew all sorts of different stuff about music and exposed me to music I wasn't accustomed to or didn't have a lot of experience with. So, you know, at the time, I don't know, 20, 21, 22 years old, and I find myself listening to all this stuff that I never knew existed. And I absolutely fell in love with jazz from the 50s and 60s. And to this day, every time I go to reach for jazz, you know, I have a couple of my favorite artists now, but number one, first and foremost, has always been this. John Coltrane, my favorite things. This is, you know, one of the original 1961 pressing from Atlantic. And it was actually, my wife was with me when I got it. And that was the record that brought us out of the dollar bin when she saw me lay out $25 for a used jazz record. At that point, she knew that my son and I were going to be taking this a lot more serious than just a casual, you know, $5 weekend trip. So here we are. Next up, very important record to me. This kind of encapsulates everything that happened in my life musically in the late 80s. Fishbone, Truth and Soul. And everything I love is on here. Well, not everything, but you've got the funk, you've got the soul, you've got the metal, you've got the punk, you've got the ska, you've got the reggae. It's all brewed up in a wonderful Fishbone stew. They got their big break, so to speak. Not big break because they never were gigantic, but they've really made their marks outside of California when they were able to get on that Beastie Boys tour for License to Ill. And they ended up in places that, you know, they never thought they'd make it to. So it was pretty cool for that. This, I got it at a place where they didn't really know what they had. So it's a reissue on Asbestos Records on red vinyl for $10. So, you know, every once in a while, good Lord shines a light down on you and you find that $10 Fishbone record on red vinyl. Next one, I want to talk about, this is a band that was from the early 2000s. They were on a show on VH1 called Bands on the Run. And it was about 4 bands that traveled across the country in a contest. They had to make the most money, sell the most tickets, sell the most t-shirts, you know, win the battle of the bands type of thing. And the band I wanted to win came in second place. This band won. And now I know, years later, because after they won, I listened to quite a bit of them. Now I know it was because the music is that good, and it still stands the test of time, and it's kind of a sad story what happened to it, but this is Flickerstick, and the album is called Welcoming Home the Astronauts, and this is a recent repressing. When I say recent, probably about the last 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, 2022 is when it was reissued. It was originally issued in 2001. Um, Part of the contest was they got a record deal with Sony Records, and they recorded the record and got ready for their big coming out party, a big showcase in New York City. And unfortunately, it was scheduled for September 11th of 2001. We all know what happened on that day. Obviously, the show was canceled, and apparently, so was the rest of their career because their big break just died. Everything in music changed. Everything paused for a while, and by the time the world got back into the swing of new music and things like that, this had already lost its traction. It's sad because it's a great, great record. If you get a chance, listen to it. It's available on streaming. The independent release of it is a little bit different. Um, some of the songs were re-recorded. Both of them are excellent. When I listen to them, I usually listen to them on streaming in the car, so I pick and choose kind of both releases and mix them together. Next up, this was a little surprise turn in my musical taste back in the mid 2010s or early 2010s. I started getting really into camping, and I wanted to listen to a little more organic music when I went camping. I want to listen to electric guitars and I didn't really think a horn sounded what you'd hear in the woods. So I wanted acoustic guitars. I wanted organic music. So I started to get into uh, you know eventually I ended up in bluegrass. I'm an old school metalhead. The speed, the precision, the aggression, the natural jump was right over country music, right into bluegrass. And from bluegrass, you start going to all the festivals where they mix in the Americana bands and so on and so forth. Next thing you know, I'm a huge Jason Isbell fan. He's from Drive By Truckers, you may recall from then. But Jason Isbell, this is a very personal record for him. He was kind of fighting his demons. He was a heavy drinker, and as he pulled himself out of that, made just a cracking record. This is also a cool thing in my collection that just recently was a revelation to me. I ordered the sleeves for a gatefold. I just thought it was going to be a thicker sleeve. You put the record in it just like you would a normal one. And I get them, and they're actually fold out gatefold sleeves with the little strip cut here so you can fold it. And kind of like the old school book covers from middle school. You knew about it. I didn't. I'm new, you know? But very, very cool. I bought like, I don't know, 75 of them. My son and I spent the other night putting them all on our gatefolds. Mostly of them ended up on his records, but ordered some more. No biggie. Next up, one of my most listened to records. One of my favorite all-time bands. They have that golden era of from their first record. I'm talking about Cheap Trick. From the first record all the way up until Dream Police. That's what most people gravitate to when they talk about that classic era of Cheap Trick. The hardcores know that the best record came out right after that. All Shook Up. Produced by George Martin. Some of their best songs. To me, this plays like a greatest hits. Love it, absolutely love it. One of the songs, "Just Got Back," was used in an Adam Sandler movie pretty righteously. You can find this for pretty cheap. When it first came out, people just figured out another Cheap Trick record. I'll buy it, and a lot of people didn't keep it. So it's out there in the wild for a couple bucks. Definitely worth it. Speaking of power pop, this is a record I never thought I'd own. Came out in the 93. So at that point, there wasn't a lot going on vinyl. Fortunately, it was recently reissued on a very limited run. And I found it. I found actually the first two records from this band. And I still can't believe I'm holding in my hand the two records from Jellyfish. Belly Button and Spilt Milk. Spilt Milk is my favorite, only by a micro margin, but still This record is everything that you want it to be if you're a fan of Wings era McCartney, ELO, Queen, Odyssey and Oracle era Zombies, Badfinger. Such cool stuff. Very throwback. Little Partridge Family stuff going on in there as well. As a child of the 70s, great 90s record. Jellyfish, Spilt Milk. And the debut, Belly Button, just as good. And last but not least, because I said I was going to do 10 of these, this record might be considered a little bit pedestrian in the vinyl world. It's one of those records that when you first get it, or when you're first considering getting it, you almost feel like you're pressured into it because it's a classic. It's a piece of genius art and all the other, superlatives they throw at it. When you first get it, if you haven't grown up with it, it's sort of one of those, takes a little bit to grow on you. And then once it does, it's invasive. I love this record, perhaps more than any other record that I own. All the accolades that it gets, I think it deserves. Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. This particular copy of it is wrecked. Just horrible shape. Somebody who owned this in a prior life used old school masking tape to cover up the spine. I can tell because the age, it's like brittle and almost turned into plastic. The record's wrecked. No inner sleeve. But this is not the copy that I listened to. I can't let a copy of Pet Sounds sit in a dollar bin with people just flipping over it. I feel like it's kind of like abandoning a kid in the park. So I listened to a way different version of it. This one. This is called The Beach Boys, Carl and the Passions, So Tough. I think they kind of went with that Sgt. Pepper thing, or that Chris Gaines thing that Garth Brooks did, where kind of playing under an assumed identity just to try to come at it from a different angle. Don't forget, this was in the 70s when the Beach Boys were trying to do intellectual hard rock, or intellectual rock, and not doing very well at the cash register with it. So for some unknown reason, probably because of sales, this was issued as a twofer. And so it's on a gatefold, and the second record is Pet Sounds. And it's really bizarre because a lot of people, I've read, different forums and sites and videos and things like that, where a lot of people agree that this is the best pressing of Pet Sounds. And I'm inclined to agree because I have a bunch of them. I've heard a bunch of them, CD, 8-track, cassette, several different vinyl pressings. And to me, this is home. This is the one I absolutely love. And I go to it quite often, especially the last couple of years. But yeah, those are the 10 that, as of today, I listen to probably the most. Now that's going to change tomorrow, and it probably would have been a different list if I pulled it yesterday. I'm a huge Stones fan, to the point where they're the only artist that I have a tattoo of on my leg. I've got the tongue logo. So I could have easily picked Let It Bleed, or Tattoo You. I think side 2 of Tattoo You should be a college course. But we'll talk about that maybe in another video. Maybe I'll do a Stones video. Aerosmith Rocks could qualify for me. I think that's probably the best hard rock album of the 80s. Of the 70s. And in the 80s, Guns N' Roses went as far as to try to recreate it with Appetite for Destruction. Unpopular opinion, they fell a little bit short of recreating Rocks, but people seem to like that record. I'm not one of them. But anyway, it could have been Badfinger. It could have been Straight Up by Badfinger. It could have been anything from the Steely Dan catalog, namely Royal Scam. or one of the Fagan solo records. Could have been Yes 90125. There's just a ton of them that could have fallen into that, the one that I would reach for. But for today, those are the ones I wanted to talk about, introduce myself, give you a little taste of what some of my videos might look like. I'm going to do some vinyl tags coming up. There's one for the summer, and there's one for Soul. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm a big Soul fan. So you'll find, if you stick with me and check things out, you'll find that, you're going to hear about some surf music, you're going to hear about some metal, you're going to hear about some old school hip hop, you're going to hear about some reggae. I kind of bounce all over the place. But we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to meet some people, and it's going to be great. I'm not going to do the like and subscribe thing on every video. It's YouTube. You know that if you like it, you hit the thing. If you want to see more of them, you hit the other thing. And then, only thing I ask is that you come check us out on Facebook, maybe join the group. And if you like what we're talking about, share it. See if we can get some of your friends involved. All right. That's it for now. I'm going to put my next list together and work on the next bit. Until then, see you on the B-side.